Morning, Lori, and evening, Grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. On this Friday, I am joined by Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor, contributing editor at The Spectator. You can get Ben's podcast at the Big Ben Podcast, and I love it, and I recommend it highly. And, of course, he has his own newsletter at The Transom on Substack. Ben, I want to get into your cover story for The Spectator about the Mexican standoff and Donald Trump's increasing kinetic activity against the cartels. But before I do, it's been announced that Eric Adams has a press conference at 4:30. Speculation on X is that he will drop out. What do you think?
Well, I think that this has been sort of a long time coming, and I think that Eric Adams has, since the point at which it became clear he did not have a path to victory, been attempting to extract some kind of new opportunity from the Trump administration. Obviously, Donald Trump has already given him a pass in so many different respects on the legal challenges that he faced earlier. But it's also a situation where I think, the president really does care about New York. He still thinks of himself as a New Yorker, even though he is a Floridian. And he cares about the city in ways that I think other Republicans may not care as much. I think there are a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill from other states across the country who would say, hey, sure, elect Mamdani. Let's use him as an example of everything that the Democrats want to do to cities across this nation, and we can run against it. And I think for Trump, he doesn't like that idea. He doesn't like the idea that you're going to put New York through the ringer with this leftist, with this Marxist, really.
Anti-Semitic Marxist.
Yeah, an anti-Semitic Marxist to boot, to actually put him in a place of power and just sort of gloat over the disaster that follows. I think Trump wants to make a difference there, and he believes that Andrew Cuomo would make a much better mayor, and he wants to clear a path. Now, I don't know if Eric Adams is going to announce anything related to that. I was just having a chat with your producer, Dwayne, and I said the funniest thing, of course, that Donald Trump could do would be to offer Eric Adams a golden parachute out by giving him authority as the attorney for the Southern District of New York, which would allow him to go on a vengeance tour, unlike, I think, anything that we've seen before. But that's just too perfect to happen.
It is too perfect. I really can't get over it. I don't think Andrew Cuomo could win a two-person race. I'm wondering if Curtis Sliwa came out and named a deputy mayor, like Michael Bloomberg is going to be my deputy mayor, and he's already accepted, and here's my other deputy mayor. Does he have a prayer if he did that to do the John? Because I know Curtis, I like Curtis, but he doesn't have a prayer unless he does something.
No, he does not, and I just it's unfortunate. But look, this is a different New York than what we've lived with in the past, and the kind of Bloomberg era New York is something that really doesn't exist anymore. And you have this voting electorate now that is happy to entertain not just socialist ideas, but the craziest socialist. I mean, that people don't seem to understand. Mamdani makes AOC look moderate.
Yes.
I'm not kidding when I say that. It's like AOC is a pragmatic, version of this compared to what Mamdani represents.
Yeah, she's like a Swedish socialist, and he's the real deal Marxist. And
exactly.
The commodification of housing. There are certain buzzwords which trigger me, and I know what they mean, and it means I was on Fox News earlier today. I said, look, he doesn't want any more money. He doesn't need any more money. Mamdani, he can only spend $8 million. He's going to use earned media. He's going to win, and it's going to be a disaster. Mark Levin was on here last week. He said, don't be complacent about this. It's the most important city in the world, and it will be thrown into chaos by him.
It absolutely will.
Now, I want to move into chaos south of the border. I think your cover story for The Spectator on the rising violence that Donald Trump is going to use against the cartels, which you also talked about on the Big Ben podcast today, or 2 days ago. I listened to it today. I always listen to it on Friday, is fascinating because, of course, I don't know that a lot of people believe he had the authority to strike the Venezuelan boat. I do. George H.W. Bush invaded Panama and took out Noriega, and 23 American soldiers died, and 3 American civilians, and 500 Panamanians. And Bill Clinton did Yugoslavia, and Barack Obama did Libya. And you get to do this if you're president. What I didn't see coming, what I heard from you is, Mexico, open your eyes, because Donald Trump's coming for your people, too.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I think people have underestimated about this, which is that the level of trust, the level of distinction that we're seeing in terms of this administration's attitude towards Mexico is fundamentally different than what it has been in the past. They no longer are willing to accept a situation where basically the level of peace, the level of quiet on our border is determined by the Mexican government in tandem with these narco-terrorists, with these cartel organizations, to a degree that they have the control, they have the determination. And I think that there is a very much an awareness on the part of the White House and Stephen Miller and other key figures that everything that is happening on the border right now is due to what the cartels themselves have decided about this moment, that it's too risky for them to engage in the kind of behavior that they engaged in under the Biden presidency, and they just plan to wait it out. So you have fat years and you have lean years. You're going to have some lean years under Donald Trump, but then we're going to be right back to doing the things that we were doing before. That's not acceptable to this White House, and because of that, they are now stepping up their action. And the key aspect of this that people need to understand is this is not the Border Patrol. This is not ICE. This is a DOD operation. It is something that is flowing through DOD. They are the ones who have war gamed this out and have their plans in place about what they can do, what they're capable of. And the Mexican military is not designed to be a military that fends off the kind of drone attacks, the type of technology that the American military can deploy against cartel targets that are, universally connected to corrupt individuals who occupy key positions, often in the federal government of Mexico itself, and have benefited significantly from their tenure under the prior President AMLO and continue to benefit from it. And that's something that I think is just going to come to a real clash point between us and Mexico in pretty short order. They are trying to do this because they want to force the Mexican government to do what they have been unwilling to do, which is to control cartel activity, crack down on it, and deal with the problem themselves. And if they won't do it, then the Americans are going to do it for them.
Yeah, I want to put on the record what you said on Big Ben. I think we are about to see activity as it regards these cartels that we have never seen before. A level of stepped-up hostilities that is no longer interested in capturing these different criminals and putting them on trial or in seizing their drugs, but in destroying them and destroying them in targeted ways. I would add to that, the DepSec of state, number 2 at state, is Christopher Landau, who is our ambassador to Mexico in Trump 1. Marco Rubio knows this problem. Christopher Landau knows this problem. And Pete Hegseth will execute on the problem. Southern Command's pretty good. It's usually not this hot. But I think I wouldn't underestimate anything here, and Sheinbaum is just not delivering.
Yeah, and Sheinbaum, and this is the thing, has played a pretty good game with a weak hand to this point. And as I discussed in the piece, it's one of these things where, the appreciation of her as being kind of a true believer version of leftism, of the kind of Marxist socialist approach, that the utopian approach that AMLO advocated for. She's the heir who actually believes all the nonsense as opposed to him who was just selling it. But the problem is for her that she is not respected by a lot of the cronies and the various people who've benefited from this relationship with these narco-terror organizations over the years, who are all still very close to AMLO and view him as essentially, the godfather, the guy who's actually in charge behind the scenes. And so, look, this is going to create, I think, real flashpoints here. We see the initial, stepped up activity in terms of this boat taken out with these Venezuelan cartel folks. The idea that the president doesn't have the right to do that in international waters is absurd, by the way. But
I was going to ask you that because I think it's commander-in-chief power, and he doesn't need an authorization for the use of military force. Do you
100%.
agree with that?
I 100% agree with that. And you obviously cited many examples that could be raised in similar terms. Look, I think Marco Rubio has a clear eye on this. I think Pete Hegseth has a clear eye on this. But by the way, Hugh, this truly does put the lie to all the people who falsely claimed over the years, initially before his first term, less so, when he was running for his second, since he had proven some of the things he was willing to do, that Donald Trump is some kind of isolationist, that he wants a retreat of American power, he cares about the Western Hemisphere. He cares about it in a way that connects back the Jacksonian era of American views of foreign policy and protecting things that are close to us. I mean, you can talk about the flights of fancy, I guess, around Canada. I think the Greenland thing is actually a little bit more real, but it's one of these things where the president, I think, understands we have allowed this Western Hemisphere to be controlled by enemies of America for far too long and have them dictating the terms of how our border works, the flow of trafficking, the flow of fentanyl, et cetera, and he doesn't want to accept that anymore.
I'm going to come back with Ben Domenech after the break. During the break, I'm going to talk with him about impeachment in Gaza, but on the other side, China. So don't miss it. Stay tuned. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel or listening on the radio, stay with us. I'm back with Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben podcast, author extraordinaire. Ben, I asked Matt Continenty earlier, if the title charts of American politics hold and the Republicans lose the House, the only thing Democrats will be able to do for 2 years is impeach Donald Trump. And I think they're going to impeach him over TikTok not enforcing the law. And I think they're going to impeach him over the Venezuelan boat. And it doesn't really matter about the merits. All that matters. Do you have anything else on your list that they're going to impeach him over?
Gosh, they'll definitely do. One of them has to be immigration related. Would they?
You know, Continenty said the same thing. Yes.
I didn't know that he was going to say that, but would they dare impeach him over the Maryland man? I mean, like it's very. They will do something that is designed to appeal to their progressive base on the idea that we should have open borders and anybody should be able to be here and no human is illegal and blah, 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 blah. They are going to have to do that. How they find a way to do that could be thorny for them. But I think it would be something along the lines of, you know, he has illegally deported X number of people. Or something like
absolutely. You're right. That's my third article. TikTok is actually a serious conversation to be had about whether or not he's abdicating his authority here when he should be enforcing the law. Let me ask you quickly, did the Israelis do it again in Gaza City, meaning surprise the world? We're not going to start for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden the tower comes down this morning. Are they?
I think that they are doing it again, yes. And look, this has become an item of just repeat action in terms of their part that they they really do. They view the opportunities as they are, and they assess them, and then they say, "Look, we got to move." And that's, I think, something that has played to their benefit. The only problem, as I see it, is that Israel is now they're surrounded in so many different ways in the public square, in the international sphere, et cetera. And I think that their attitude towards this is we're going to do what we believe we have to do, and damn the consequences.
Okay, quick question though, Ben. Do you think they cooked up the leak from the security cabinet of Zamir yelling at Netanyahu? Do you think that's all just made up?
I don't think that's made up. Do you think it's? I mean, what is that your opinion?
I thought it was real until this morning. But if they're 40% into Gaza, it doesn't make any sense other than an information operation.
No, I mean it's very. Look, I would not put it past them. Let's put it that way. But I still initially at least took it at face value. But I think that this is a situation where the Israelis have such a commitment to this now. They're all the way in. They're pot committed, and they understand what they have to do in order to exact the kind of result that they want to achieve, and they're going to continue to do it. And there's not.
Well, they have Bobo-dolled me again. I don't know about other people, but I got Bobo-dolled into not knowing what they can and will do in the short term. Stand by. I'll be right back with Ben Domenech. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Ben Domenech is my guest. Ben, we have to march through two stories fairly quickly here. The first is, if CBS, the new CBS, does in fact acquire the Free Press, what is the significance of Barry Weiss getting a senior editorial position at the Tiffany Network?
So this is very significant for a number of reasons, and I should preface it by saying I was at CBS 2014 through 2017 as a contributor there during the kind of John Dickerson era of Face the Nation and the like, and caught the beginnings of the Margaret Brennan tale of idiocy that plays out now. And I just have to say that the network is in a very dire position in terms of the loss that they've had of respect, the loss that they've had in terms of being, one of the last networks that was viewed as being fair to Republicans in some respects, especially because of everything that played out with the Kamala Harris interview. The Ellison purchase of Paramount, CBS, et cetera, is enormously significant, and they were already telling signs that he wanted to have a standout, difference-making, contrarian approach, and that's what I think he wants to achieve with this potential free press deal and with Barry. Now, I will say, as someone who knows Barry a little bit, she's someone who definitely appreciates legacy media and wants to make legacy media better as opposed to burn it all to the ground, as some folks on the right do. And I respect that opinion. But I also think the culture clash with CBS, which is so long in the tooth and includes a lot of major figures who are still around and still in the buildings, I think that that's going to be very difficult to navigate. It's not an upstart new network. It's something that has its own culture. It has its own rules. It has its own expectations, and they're going to rebel completely against this. And the question will be whether Ellison gives them their walking papers or whether he tries to force it into something that works together. And, we'll see. Maybe
Barry Weiss has got, look, I only know her from being a guest on this show, and I've never met her physically in the same room. But she's got more courage than most people to take on the New York Times and CBS. And I know it's a lot of money, but it's also, she's fiercely independent. And boy, if she brings her contributors, Douglas Murray, Aviv Redig-Gur, Matt Continetti, and her Mary Barron to prankster Uri Berliner, and they all take over 60 Minutes, I'll start watching again. And I grew up on that.
And I advocate for her to fill the Andy Rooney role. She'd be good at
well
that,
said.
actually.
All right, last question. China is the subject today, front page stories in the Wall Street Journal and the Times of London about their coming 2027 invasion of Taiwan. What do you credit those worries, Ben Domenech?
Well, I do believe that this is something where there's been a ticking clock here for a long time that people expect is closer to the end now than we've seen in a long time. And look, the continued talks that have been reported by the Financial Times and others between the United States and Taiwan regarding their defense is something that I think is of huge importance. I also don't think that a lot has been said publicly on this to the degree that it needs to be. The experts are paying attention, but I think we need to have more people out there speaking about the importance of this and what a Chinese takeover of Taiwan would mean for American markets, for our trade internationally, and everything else. Because you can't just have this pop up as an issue for the average American and not have them understand the risks involved.
No, it's guns of August stuff. And the folks who follow, like former Secretary of State Pompeo and former National Security O'Brien, they know what this means. I don't know that Donald Trump would order the shoot, but I do think Xi Jinping might be tempted to preempt.
I think that you are correct on those points, but I also do not think that Donald Trump likes situations where he feels like things are happening that are out of his control or reach. And that's generally true of his approach to foreign policy. He wants to be able to be someone who can affect the outcome of these things in America's benefit. And I believe that in this situation, there are enough people who are still in the orbit who share those concerns of people, at least in the first Trump administration, that this is something that is front of mind for them. I just think that it needs to be something that is leaned into more and is more publicly addressed in ways that it hasn't yet been.
Then let me conclude with where we began. You suggested that the cartels might dummy down for 4 years and wait out Trump before returning to do business in the fat years. Do you think Xi Jinping might have the same attitude towards Donald Trump?
He might, and I think that part of that is just Trump's natural unpredictability. He might view, a future president, a Vance or, God forbid, a Newsom or somebody like that as being someone who is more directionally clear in terms of their activity as opposed to the wild card that Trump represents. And look, I think that that's been something that the president has played to his benefit, as much as the legacy media has described it as chaotic. And something of a nature where everybody's running around with their hair on fire. The truth is that he has consistently used that, I believe, to America's benefit, and it could be one item that proves once again that this is the kind of situation where people don't necessarily want to get involved in a conflict with someone like that.
I think you're right, and just even the prospect of having a Gavin Newsom versus a JD
I'm
Vance.
sorry to
No, it's
you
worth
on a
waiting
nice
for.
Friday.
It's worth waiting for if you're Xi Jinping, because they're transplanting organs into each other. If we believe
Ezra
the
Klein, I was just watching an interview. Ezra Klein just did an interview with Neil Brennan where he basically came out and endorsed him and just said, like, he's the best thing we've got going on right now. And I just,
oh gosh,
oh no.
the governor won't even come on this show, and so I think he's glassjaw Gavin, but we'll find out. Ben
No,
Domenech.
he should absolutely come on this show.
Oh,
He should be brave
he's
enough
promised
come
to
on
like
this
10
show.
times. He tells me every time I email him, we'll work it out. Never shows up. I think he's got a glass jaw.
Yeah,
And
well,
we'll wait and we'll see. Ben, thank you. Everyone, go get your Big Ben podcast. Go subscribe to the Transom over at Substack. And by all means, find the Spectator.com